Wow, it's been a long time since I last made a YouTube video. And so much has been happening, honestly. So much has been happening. I moved to Canada and I still cannot believe that it's been 3 years since I moved. Like tomorrow, actually, today makes it 3 years that I moved to Canada. Sometimes I pause and really think about it because growing up, I never really thought much about moving abroad. It wasn't something I had planned for myself. But when my husband mentioned moving to Canada, I thought about it and said, okay, let's do it. Not because I had everything figured out, but because it felt like a step worth taking. Once I made that decision, I knew I needed a clear direction. So I decided to go back to school. So before I moved, obviously, I applied to one school and I got in. I also got a scholarship. Once that happened, everything started to make sense. Things didn't really suddenly become easy, but they just kind of became clearer. And looking back now, when I compare my journey to others, I realized that in many ways I was fortunate. I don't want to say it was effortless because it still required discipline, focus, sacrifice, but things aligned for me, and I'm very grateful for that. I honestly, I honestly won't change my process for anything in the world. When I moved, I knew I had to take school seriously, so I put my head down, I focused, I did the work, and guess what? The girl finished with a distinction. At some point, it really hit me like, oh, this is my second master's degree. It really humbled me. I'm not gonna lie, because it wasn't just about earning another degree. It was about realizing how much capacity I actually have. Kind of like discovered myself this past new years, and it's been mind blowing. The rooms I found myself in since moving here still surprises me. Not because being in those rooms, but because not just being in those rooms, but being asked to speak, being listened to, being trusted to contribute, and to be a part of meaningful change. Sometimes I sit back and think, wow, this was never part of the plan. So, I stay grateful, I remain humble, and I just continue to do my best. So along the way, other parts, started coming together. I got my driver's license, guys. I learned how to drive in this country. I got my permanent residence. I got my teaching license, and I got a job. So, when I list it like this, it kind of sounds very neat, but there were moments of doubt, moments of exhaustion, a moment where I had to push myself. Even then, I still showed up, I still put in the work, and I just remember at the beginning of this year, someone asked me what my word for the year was. And without overthinking it, I said, hopeful, not hopeful in a vague sense, but hopeful genuinely because I believe that things would work out. And honestly, most of the things I was hoping for, they really did happen, not perfectly, but steadily. So recently, I started asking myself a different question: what does growth really look like now? Like, what's the next thing for me? And one of the answers that keeps coming back to me is consistency, and that's where my channel comes into play. I decided I wanted to be consistent here. But I won't lie, I kind of hesitated because coming on here to talk about your experiences made me vulnerable, and vulnerability isn't always comfortable. And you won't believe that I went as far as opening a faceless YouTube channel. I recorded a few videos there, but something about it just didn't feel right. I kept asking myself if that was really how I wanted to show up. And I realized that it wasn't. The people who helped me the most on my journey, they were visible, they were honest about their experiences, they shared what worked and what didn't, and how they navigated those things. And it really helped me a lot. It really helped me. And that by far, like, your experiences really helped me than any perfectionist video would do. So if something isn't exactly how I want it, I tend to hold back. But I've realized that waiting for things to be perfect will continue to hold me back and not allow me, do the things I want to do. So I decided to choose a different approach. This channel, when I started it in 2020, was supposed to be a fashion brand, and then I kind of delved into food. Fashion and food obviously will always be a part of me, but life has shifted, and I do not want to resist that shift. In this season of my life, the best service I feel like I can offer to anyone out there is to share my experiences, my lessons, my perspective. So yes, I am taking it seriously, and I'm choosing to be consistent rather than perfect. I'm really just going to share my experiences. Hopefully, it's going to help someone. And if it helps one person, that's going to be enough for me. So yeah, so this is just to say that I'm back and I'm really wanting to do this and give myself to you all. If you have questions, I'm gonna be ready to answer the questions depending on what the questions are. But for the most part, yeah, I'm gonna be answering questions. If you have things you like to know, or questions about like how I moved here, how I got my teaching license, what I think about different provinces, let me know. I will be bringing out videos based on what I think about different things, obviously. But if you have like specific topics you would like me to talk about, by all means, put it down in the comment section, and I will see you in my next video.